It is Saturday, the 21st of May 2022. This skidmark is about the problems that we have in finding the truth. The truth has become evasive, and gone are the days where you could open a newspaper or switch on the radio or switch on a TV news station and get the facts. It just does not exist anymore. Right from the beginning of the Russian special military operation into Ukraine, it became clear that you will have to dig a bit if you want more information that is reliable. I made a very stupid post on Twitter, and fortunately a journalist took the time to engage me and point me in some other directions. Since then, I dug deep to find other sources than the normal media sources. And it so happened that I stumbled onto the Duran. Alex and Alexander is excellent sources of information. Both guys discuss the things of the day, and their discussions and their opinions are based on published facts, utterances by people or studies that has been published and so forth. For me, they are very reliable. Yes, they also sometimes get it wrong, but they are also quick to sort that out. Another source was Scott Ritter. I found him on Twitter initially, and then I started seeing some of his interviews, and I listened to the guy. He has a good lifetime behind him of personal experiences in the arms industry, and he was in the military. He also bases all his opinions on facts and does not embark on long stories of his feelings. He is also very quick to point out that you must make sure that you look at all the sources available and not only listen to him. I find him reliable, informative, and he comes up with intelligent solutions to some of the problems. During this venture of mine in getting more information, I also became aware of a guy, Gonzalo Lira. Initially, I listened to a lot of what he was publishing, and I saw him as a typical social media commentator. He very rarely supports any of his statements with documentation, and it's all his own opinion. He is very opinionated. And then there was a mystery. He disappeared. He did post on his social media that if people don't hear from him for longer than 12 hours, they must know that he has been taken. Now, he is situated in Kharkiv in Ukraine, and he played that ball a lot. So he disappeared, and the social media started asking questions. And Scott Ritter himself made a post about it on Telegram, because at that stage Scott was removed from Twitter. And Scott, his initial post contained a line that gave the impression that Lira was taken out. Subsequently to that post, Scott explained what he meant in the post. Be it as it may, a lot of attention was drawn to Gonzalo Lira, and it appears that through the Chilean embassy and Polish embassy and so forth, Lira all of a sudden reappeared mysteriously one morning. Now the story is he was taken by the security police of Ukraine, and I don't buy most of it. There are too many holes for me in that story, and there are things that does not make sense. but let it be. He recovered his position and he carried on. And then yesterday he did a hatchet job on Scott Ritter. I listened to him, and the more he talked about it, the more the red lights flied up on my dashboard. Look, I'm not a military analyst or a professional political analyst and so, but I have been trained in my life to be a very good investigator. And one of the things that I was taught was to listen to how people say things, not necessarily what they are saying. And what I get from Lera is, it does not make sense for me. So I cannot understand what his mission is. I might lean to the point that he could be out to do damage to the Duran and Scott Ritter and Jacob Dreisen and so forth. Because that crowd of commentators are giving the good stories. And I am not convinced anymore about Gonzalo Lera's credentials. But I'm going to leave it there. You can make your own decisions and come to your own conclusions. Another guy that I follow on YouTube is Patrick Lancaster. He's not the most sophisticated reporter, but he is at least on the front line in the Donbass, and he tells us the things as it is and he videos it as it happens. So in this whole fiasco in Ukraine, the biggest problem we had was to find what is really going on there. Here in South Africa we had a situation with one of our politicians that made one of those kiss the ring trips to Kiev, and it was a replication of what is normally in the mass media. Now we see that it looks like the fight is over, finally over in Mariupol. The Western media tried their best to call it evacuation. Let's call it what it is. It was a surrender. And we are now hearing lots of horror stories, seeing of how families were closed up in their basements and the basements booby-trapped with hand grenades by the Ukrainian forces and all types of nonsense like that. Something else I saw earlier this morning was a convoy from Russia bringing in aid, food and medicine and things like that. And I sit and I wonder, how can the so-called collective West have a clean conscience about this thing? All they have been doing was pumping in weapons and arms and fuming the fires of war, with not one single incident of showing that they actually care for the people of Ukraine. But that story will unravel over time. The truth will come out on that. The latest fiasco I can see developing there is this plan of the Germans to steal the Ukraine wheat. Now, it will be a sad day if that happens, because Ukraine can't plant, for obvious reasons. And the Ukrainian people are going to need food. And the collective West is happy to steal whatever wheat is there in Ukraine. It is always a reality that propaganda will wash out facts in situations like this. But every one of us, normal people, really need to ask ourselves, why is nobody of stature in the so-called collective West? Why are none of them promoting a solution for Ukraine? No, none of that. Pump in weapons and pump in weapons. And that was part of what Scott discussed in that interview in which he was branded as having changed his opinion. All he actually said, and he explained it in another interview, was that with the volume of money that the West is pouring into Ukraine for weapons, Russia is going to find it hard to achieve its goal of demilitarizing Ukraine. And that's what he said. The amounts of money that the West has so far pumped into Ukraine exceeds the Russian annual military budget. That is horrendous. But then again, not one parcel of medicine, not one package of bread, but tons and tons and tons of weapons. I wonder who are the bad guys here.